Hi everyone, I'm Maggie McGrath, senior editor at Forbes. Hurricane Erin is going to bring damaging waves to the East Coast. Where is it headed and how much damage will there be? Joining us to answer these questions is Alex DaSilva. He is AccuWeather's lead hurricane forecaster. Alex, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start with the state of the hurricane right now. It had been a Category 3 storm. It is now a Category 2 storm. Where is it? What's it doing?
Yeah, right now the storm is located northeast of the Bahamas here. You can see it on the satellite presentation, just such a large storm right now. It's undergone 2 eye wall replacement cycles during its lifetime, and so that's really helped to expand that wind field out. And so you can see some of the clouds are already starting to reach the Carolinas, even though the center of the storm is down in this area here. So quite the expansive storm, and this is why we're going to be so concerned about big time waves and big time rip currents up the entirety of the East Coast.
Big time waves and rip currents, but based on where that storm is headed, or at least where it looks like it's headed in that satellite, it looks like it's headed straight for the East Coast. Will it make landfall?
Yeah, we're expecting it to stay off the coast by about 200 miles or so. So let me pull up our projected eye path here. So here's the eye path here. We're expecting the storm to get within about 200 miles or so of the Outer Banks of North Carolina, give or take maybe about 25 miles. It could come within a little bit of 200 miles or could come a little bit without on the other side of 200 miles. But generally around 200 miles, we don't expect a direct landfall. And then we expect a hard right-hand turn for the storm sometime during the day tomorrow that'll push it out to sea. And the reason why we're seeing this push out to sea, it's going to really spare, I think, the northeast coast from a direct hit, is because we're seeing a dip in the jet stream coming into the northeast. So that's really going to push the storm out to sea. And that's why we don't anticipate a landfall. And we expect the core of the storm to remain well out to sea.
So the core of the storm will remain out to sea, but you mentioned damaging riptides. So let's talk about the effect to people living on the coast, because some people might hear, "Oh, it's turning away from the coast, I'm fine." What will actually happen to everyone? Let's start maybe south of Washington, D.C. and talk about the Carolinas. How high will the waves get? What will those currents look like?
Yeah, well, first I'll start off with the whole East Coast. The entirety of the East Coast needs to be on guard for big time waves and big time rip currents. Whether you live in South Florida or all the way up in eastern Canada, you need to be on the lookout for very dangerous rip currents. There's already been over 100 water rescues in portions of the Carolinas already for people going out into the waves and experiencing those rip currents. So we certainly urge people to stay out of the water, especially if those lifeguards are telling you that it's too dangerous to swim. But the big time waves, those are really going to be concentrated, I think, a little further north in the Carolinas. This is where the storm will make its closest pass during the day tomorrow. During the day Thursday is when the storm will make its closest pass. Look at the size of these waves, 15 to 20 feet in parts of the Outer Banks of North Carolina. Hatteras itself, 12 to 17 feet. But even down to Wrightsville Beach, we can be looking at 5 to 10 foot waves coming on shore here. So very, very impressive. And that's going to cause some big time beach erosion. We're already seeing it today, and it's just going to keep getting worse. And then if we take a look here at the storm surge, we're also forecasting storm surge. So that's water above normally dry ground. So if you go and you step your feet in the water and then you kind of look up 3 to 6 feet above that and then straight inland, that's what we're going to be dealing with here. So here's the storm surge forecast. So you're looking at least 1 to 3 feet from Wrightsville Beach all the way up through Virginia Beach and portions of southern Maryland here. And then it looks like the core of that storm surge is going to be along the Outer Banks, of course, 3 to 6 feet along the Outer Banks of North Carolina. We're expecting to see a lot of damage out there. The road out there is already being impacted right now, and we're still a day before the storm makes its closest pass. So we're already seeing flooding in these areas, and it's going to get a lot worse here over the next 24 hours.
I was going to ask about flooding because, of course, North Carolina experienced severe flooding during the 2024 hurricane season. How far inland do you expect that flooding to go?
Well, the good news is we're not going to be seeing a lot of rainfall from this storm overall. There is going to be some rain ahead of the storm in portions of New York State, Connecticut, Massachusetts, but it's not really related to Erin. It's more related to the cold front that's coming to the east, stalling out and bringing some heavy rain to those areas. The good news is the storm is going to remain well enough offshore that the rain bands are just going to clip the outer banks of North Carolina. So we might see an inch or two of rain along the extreme outer banks of North Carolina, but we really don't expect to see much flooding from rainfall. Most of the flooding will be near the beaches from those big waves and from the onshore push that's going to cause those dangerous storm surges to come inland.
Now, are there any areas of the East Coast that are under evacuation orders, or is everyone just being advised to watch carefully?
I mean, due to the storm surge forecast and the big waves forecast, the Outer Banks of North Carolina has been evacuated. Those evacuation orders went up a couple of days ago. They were mandatory evacuations because they expect the road that runs along the Outer Banks to be compromised. It's already being compromised in certain areas. Saw some videos of that road already being washed over, and we're still 24 hours before the storm even makes it up there. So that's the reason those evacuation orders were issued, because they're expecting that it's going to be several days that you might not be able to get in or out of Cape Hatteras here because of the roads being compromised. So that's the area that is most of concern right now for flooding. But we also even have, of course, there could still be some flooding even farther north than that. But the core of the damaging waves, the damaging flooding is going to be right along that North Carolina coastline.
North Carolina coastline in store for some damaging flooding, but further north where I am in New York City, I know city beaches have been closed for Wednesday and I think Thursday too. So what will be the effect, say, north of the Carolinas? And how much flooding could we perhaps expect to see in the New York City area?
Yeah, I think in the New York City area, there's really not going to be a whole lot of flooding. There might be a little bit of tidal rise, but the main thing up in the New York City area and the Long Island beaches is going to be that dangerous rip current risk. And that's going to go throughout the rest of the week and maybe even into Saturday as well, potentially. So even after the storm is long gone, some of those waves will still be angry out there. And that surf is still going to be very dangerous. So if those lifeguards are telling you not to go in the water, if those red flags are up, please, please, please heed those warnings and stay out of the water. We don't want your life to be put at risk, and we don't want the lifeguards' lives to be put at risk if they have to go out and rescue you if you didn't listen to them. So please, please, please stay out of the water. This is going to be a very dangerous week for East Coast beaches. Again, this is the entirety of the East Coast, Florida to Maine to Eastern Canada. Everybody needs to be very, very mindful of these dangerous rip currents. And a lot of times you can't see them, and you step in the water, even if you go up just to your knees, even if you kind of lose your footing, you can still be swept away. So please don't even enter the water at all along these East Coast beaches. It's going to be very, very dangerous out there this week.
A dangerous week for East Coast beaches. That is a sober warning. When will we be in the clear up and down the East Coast all the way to Eastern Canada? Is Sunday the safe day, or will this continue into next week?
Yeah, in terms of beaches, rip current risk, I think by Sunday, a lot of the rip current risk does come down. Of course, we still need to watch it just in case. But over the next couple of days, we do need to watch as the storm moves up. The big waves over the next 2 days, so Wednesday, Thursday, maybe even into Friday as well. But we also need to watch the wind. So along the coast, Carolinas, the winds are really going to pick up during the day today and into tomorrow. So we need to watch for the heaviest winds along the outer banks of North Carolina, even extending up into portions of the southern Delmarva. So that's southern portions of Maryland here, maybe even into southern Delaware as well. 40 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts with an AccuWeather local storm max of 80 towards the outer banks. I think if anybody's going to have a shot at around 70 or 80 miles per hour winds, it's going to be in the far outer banks. But then we even have to watch southeastern Massachusetts. Cape Cod and the islands have to be watched as well. Even though the storm is going to be moving well away from the coast here, that wind field is so expansive that we could even see 40 to 60 mile per hour winds in Cape Cod and the islands. And then even in some of the major cities, Baltimore, Philadelphia, New York, Hartford, Providence, yeah, those winds are probably going to be less than 40 miles per hour, but we're still going to be seeing winds, maybe gusts of 20 to 30 miles per hour. New York City, Hartford, so even areas well away from the coast can still at least experience some breezy conditions during the day on Thursday.
All right, so high winds, dangerous waves up and down the East Coast for Hurricane Erin. We're in the thick of hurricane season and possibly not even in the thick of it because it's still August. I know September can really be a doozy. But Alex, what else do you see brewing in the Atlantic? Are there other storms that are on the way?
Yeah, there's at least two other areas that we're watching across the Atlantic. Both have about a high risk chance of development here over the next couple of days. This first tropical wave is actually going to follow a very similar track to Erin, probably getting near the islands later this week, but then taking a turn to the north. Now, we do expect this to stay off the East Coast as we're going to have a dip in the jet stream that should kick it out to sea, but we're still going to have to watch the islands very carefully, and just in case it makes a little more of a jog to the west. The good news is we don't expect any rapid intensification with this because it's going to be following in a similar track that Hurricane Erin did. And when Erin went through, it really mixed up some of those ocean waters. We call that upwelling, when cooler waters are mixed up to the surface. And so since this tropical wave is going to be following in Erin's wake, it likely will be moving over cooler waters, which have less energy. And so we don't expect this one to really blow up into a Category 5 or anything like that, which is certainly good news. The wave behind it is a little bit lower. It's a little bit more south. That one, I think, has a good chance of development here over the next 48 hours or so. But then after that, by the time it starts to approach the islands down here, the environment becomes a little bit more hostile, a lot more dry air. And so that wave might actually fall apart before it makes it to the islands here. But we have a long way to go in the hurricane season. The statistical peak of the hurricane season is not until September 10th. So we still have a long way to go. We're going to have to track many more tropical waves throughout the hurricane season.
And I'm sure you will be watching them closely at AccuWeather. Alex DaSilva, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time and insight as always.
Thank you.